Okay. All right. Well, let's begin. My name is Bob Deek, and I'm going to introduce Chef Ursula XVII, who's a passionate chocolatier, just opened her atelier on Main Street in Cutchogue. She's received great press from the New York Times, Dan's Paper, Forbes, and others. Today, we will learn what makes Disset chocolate so special. Her chat will be recorded and loaded on our YouTube channel. For better audio quality, everyone will be muted. After the chat, you'll be able to ask your questions. And so thank you from the North Fork Foodie Tour to Disset Chocolate for being our newest partner.
Well, thank you so much for having us. It's an honor.
So you can begin at your leisure. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for signing on. We're just going to dive right in. We're going to kind of just go a little bit through the journey, start at the beginning. So my name is Ursula XVII. I was raised in New York City. I am a first generation Catalan American, which influences a lot of my favorite profiles and a lot of things here at Disset Chocolate, starting with the name. It is Catalan for 17. I have trained as a pastry chef for about a decade, right? A little bit over, something like that, both in the United States and in Europe. Closest to us, I was at I Fiori in the city, in the Langham Hotel. I have been in the North Fork for a little over 3 years, and this, is really the fruits of a long time dream that I have had. We have received an amazing amount of support from the community out here in the North Fork. I really always joke that we are a community that really puts the unity in community, and we have really felt that from the very beginning. I also joke that our 5-year plan became a 6-month plan as we first started as, private label, but kind of behind the scenes working for bed and breakfasts and different private events like that. We launched as brick and mortar. We launched as e-commerce first, and very quickly we have now opened our brick and mortar. So I already dove into a little bit, but who is Disset Chocolate? So who are we and where did we come from? What happened? So Disset Chocolate, we are an artisanal chocolate company. Our factory is also in Cutchogue. It is not in the same property as our brick and mortar, but it's just down the road about a half a mile away. And we hand paint, hand make, and hand package absolutely everything. And we try and do a lot of quality control and keep things to the finest degree, from sourcing all the way to the consumer's hands. We have a variety of products, pretty much all things chocolate, from truffles, bonbons, filled bars that we call bon bars, just enrobed bars. We have pretty much anything you can think of. Signature hot chocolate mix, the hot chocolate bombs that were trending a lot this year. And we even have something we call our anything but cookies. So like I said, anything that doesn't make it through quality control because of shine, breakage, or whatever that may be, gets chopped up into chocolate chips, and we make cookies for the weekends. So we call them anything but the kitchen sink. So if you wanted to know anything else about us, feel free to visit our website. We continuously update it and add any new things that are available. And there's even some pages to see as we start retiring collections. I'll explain a little bit about that. Those come up there. So you will always have like an archive of everything that Disset has ever produced. So some obstacles that we found when opening Disset, things that you don't imagine. You see all of us learning off Pinterest and Instagram. All these content creators make it seem like we can all do this, right? It gives you a big push to be the best, go for it, make your dreams come true. So first thing we found was New York has one of the strictest cottage laws in the United States. The cottage laws pretty much are what affects what we are allowed to produce in home and sell to the public. in New York State, chocolate is considered a high risk food because it melts at very low temperatures. Thus, it does not pasteurize just like milk would in the ice cream making process or anything like that. So then we realized this is not something we can do from home. This is not something I can do no matter how much I renovate my basement and bring it up to commercial code. We cannot do that. So then we dove into, okay, let's get a real commercial space, not just build a commercial space. We were able to find that. And after getting, building it out and passing all the inspections and everything that we had to do, insurance and taxing things that, I'm a chocolatier, not an accountant. So all of a sudden I find myself putting all these different hats and figuring out, we have to pay quarterly in this county and that county. Everything is so different. And not to mention all the things and regulations that are this specific county and town have. As we all know, Southold is a beautiful town that likes to preserve a lot of what has been here for a long time, which is a big reason why I love the North Fork. But that was another obstacle we faced, was making sure that we were in the proper zoning and doing everything by the book for the town, not just the state or in federal use. So that's something that we, kind of learned the hard way. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about chocolate. So I named this slide, Not All Chocolate is Good Chocolate, because we could talk about this really for hours, but I say this because when talking about the percentage in a chocolate, right? You go to a supermarket or a store or somewhere and you see 70% dark chocolate, 70% dark chocolate, 70%. And, we're now getting bombarded with this information that dark chocolate is really good for you. So let's get the highest percentage. Let's do that. That must be, the higher, the darker. That's not actually true. The percentage in a chocolate is actually only telling you what percent of that chocolate is cocoa mass. So it's not sugar, it's not the emulsification, which usually is like a lecithin or something like that. So when I keep saying the 70, there might be a chocolate that is 70%. And of that 70%, we'll say 38 is cocoa butter and the rest is cocoa mass. That will be a lot more bitter and a lot less fluid. Fluidity doesn't matter too much to the consumer, but to us, it matters a lot. It matters, it'll change the consistency, it'll change the thickness of a shell, the texture of a filling. So really in chocolate world, for chocolatiers, 70% means absolutely nothing. It was a little bit more helpful when it was semi-sweet or dark or something like that, because at least it was telling us in which direction flavor-wise it was. And then we always have to go back to the manufacturer and determine specs beyond the 70. I need to know how much cocoa butter is in it, how fluid is it going to be? And then from there, we balance all of our recipes. So there's a very it's a lot of chemistry and a lot of physics into balancing a recipe to make sure that the shelf life is long enough to make it through brick and mortar, to make it home, to let it sit in somebody's fridge for a couple of days while they enjoy it. But really, when you're getting a 70%, taste them. If you're not so worried about the fluidity, taste them and see. That will determine what you like about it. You know what I mean? Because that process, that is determined in the making process. It's determined in the recipe. Like I said, how much cocoa butter versus cocoa mass versus sugar, or in milk chocolate, now we're adding the ingredient of milk powder. In white chocolate, we are removing the cocoa mass. So it's cocoa butter, sugar, and milk powder. So those are all a specific recipe in the process. And another thing that I like to bring up that a lot of people don't know is that chocolate can be very well compared to wine, which is also another beautiful thing of being here in the North Fork. It is a fermented product like wine is. It has a terroir like wine is, like wine does. And these are the things that determine the flavor profile. So I get a lot of times when someone wants to come and do a tasting and we do them, we taste like 3 different 64% darks. One could taste like red fruits, one could taste like coffee, and one could taste, very caramelly. All the percentages are exactly the same. What dictates it is, where did the cacao grow? What did they do during the fermenting process? And what did they even do during the roasting process? So really all of that is just to give you a little snippet of, Michael's Candy Melt is not chocolate. It's colored cocoa butter at that point, which is why it will never taste like chocolate. So for us, it's very important when knowing all these things, more than focusing on a percentage, 70% or this, we try to source everything from places that are responsible farming, meaning no child labor, organic just by process, because a lot of these farmers, they're in third world countries and they cannot afford the expensive certifications to put a sticker that says organic. So we don't judge that book by its cover. We really go and talk to them and let's see, show us the procedure, show us how you're doing it. And we have found that a lot of people actually use organic practices without being able to afford it. Same with, dark chocolate is vegan, but it costs a lot of money in the United States to be able to put these labels on your product. So for us, it's very important to be able to trace responsible, like transparent traceability is something that I say is very important, because here in the North Fork, we love local, right? So I'm going to try and use as much local as possible. But let's be real, chocolate does not grow here. I will try, I've tried, it does not grow here. And so then what's the next best thing to local is responsibly farmed, transparent traceability. So I want to be able to walk on that farm should I have the time and COVID allow us to travel. I would like to be able to, go to the Dominican Republic, talk to the farmer, see what's happening and really get down to it in that sense. That's actually what's more important to us than any of the labeling or the percentaging or anything like that. But these are all things that we'll get into as we start doing workshops, if anybody's interested in learning more, because the whole percentage is about a 5-hour class. So next, what is a bonbon? So a bonbon is one of our signature pieces that we make here. It's a small confection coated in chocolate. I like to say that it is a shell of very thin chocolate that is, we use it as a vessel to serve you flavor. So if we're collaborating with a vineyard, we are trying to represent their wine or whatever it is that they're trying to highlight as best as possible. And chocolate is really just the small little vessel to get it to the consumer. Originally, bonbon is a French word. It came about in the 17th century, and it really just means good. So in French, bon, like bon appetit, means good. So it was really just, I can imagine now, and someone in the 17th century tried one of these for the first time and bon. Next thing you know, we have a bonbon. And as time has evolved, especially here at Disset, the fillings are not always very soft chocolate ganaches. I get very creative in the sense that we have some that have a cookie. We have in the signature collection, we have a meringue lemon pie. So we have pie crust inside of that. So we really kind of take it to the next level and combine the idea of it's a vessel to bring you something. And as a trained pastry chef, a lot of times it's a dessert or something that we would put in a dessert into one bite in one vessel. And something that we get asked a lot is, what is the difference between a bonbon and a truffle? A lot of times it's just the process. We'll dive into a little bit of what it is, but the truffle is what we all kind of grew up with just a little round ball. They're usually a spread, and then somebody sits there and hand rolls them and hand dips them that way. A lot of times they get coated in powdered sugar or cocoa powder or something along those lines, or even like a Ferrero Rocher is actually a pretty good example as to what a truffle is as opposed to a bonbon. Next, there's two ways to make bonbons, which is these are the two ways that we make them. One is called enrobing. Enrobing, basically, we make a big sheet of the filling, we cut it, and we can pass almost like the I Love Lucy belt. Well, not almost, like the I Love Lucy belt. We can pass about thousands of these at a time. So what we do is we spend a couple days making fillings, we portion them out, and then we sit there for an entire shift and just pass things through the machine. We decorate them accordingly of what's something on the inside. So this is one of the things that we actually stopped doing by hand. It's one of the few things that we make everything by hand until the moment that we pass it through the machine. In the beginning, we were hand dipping one by one. It's less consistent that way. So it was the only one thing that I did choose to switch over to machinery. And this is a good example as well, as you can see in this picture. These are our coconut marzipan bonbons as they went in. And you can see it's coated with a beautiful dark chocolate. This dark chocolate is 62%. So just a little nod to what we were talking about in the last slide, 62%, right? This chocolate has 38% cocoa butter, 24% cocoa mass, adding up to make the 62% that I told you, right? So for me, this is a very fluid, right? Of that 62%, more than half of it is cocoa butter. So it's a very fluid chocolate, and it's a cocoa mass that is very neutral in flavor. So I use this to enrobe them because it's a very fluid chocolate, which means that I will end up with a very thin box around my filling. And I want the very neutral flavor to not take away from what the flavors are inside. So again, that kind of explains maybe a little bit better the percentages. Then molding. Molding is the other way of doing a chocolate. And in this case, we work backwards. Instead of making a filling, making the shell with the machine and then decorating, whether you're putting a hazelnut on top or pop rocks on top or whatever it is that you're doing on top, we actually paint the mold first. We create the shell, one shell. We fill it with 1, 2, 3, however many layers we're doing, pie crusts, anything. And then we do what was called capping. You just seal it closed and you end up with a little bit of a shinier product, a little bit more refined. It's kind of what's newer on the market. These are easier to be done in and shelled in any chocolate. So these, we do milk chocolate, white chocolate, caramelized white chocolate, fruit chocolates, pretty much anything, because we only use that machine strictly with that very fluid dark chocolate. So the downside of these chocolates, which are very beautiful, is that we're limited by the quantity of cavities in a mold. So as you can see in the picture that's on the slide here, I'm doing the shell part. So this mold has been painted and now it has chocolate has been passed through it. And you can see that we're forming little vessels to start filling them. So as you can see in the mold that I'm doing in the picture, there's actually only 40 cavities. So that means we're doing 40 at a time. Even though we are hand painting them one at a time, 40 of them come out at a time. We do have thousands of molds. So a lot of times, it's not that only those get done, but that's why we call ourselves a small batch chocolates makers. So to kind of recap, you can kind of see in the background, I don't know if you can see it as well, but maybe you can kind of see I have tweezers, I'm holding a little hazelnut and we're placing it on. And that's behind the text, just to give you an idea, again, comparatively, we have the enrobed bonbons. Those take about 2 to 3 days, again, between making the filling. Maybe you have 2 layers, why you might need that extra day to let one layer set, do the next one, and then pass it on the 3rd day. The molded is about 3 days. It's 1 entire day to clean the mold, 1 entire day to decorate it, shell it, and 1 entire day to fill it, and 1 last day to close them. So those are a little bit more time consuming. And then in the moment of decorating, they're complete opposites. In the enrobed, we're starting in the inside and we're working our way out. So we do the filling, we do the shell, and we decorate it. In the molded, we do the decorating, we do the shell, we do the filling, and then we cap to finish. So in this sense, we it's almost backwards. When you're painting a mold, you have to think backwards from a painter. The first thing you put down on a mold is the first thing that you see. If you're drawing a petal or a flower, the first stroke, brush stroke, finger stroke, toothbrush, we use a lot of different tools. That's the first thing that's going to appear. It's not like a canvas where if you make a little mistake, you can just add a little bit of acrylic over something and you cover it and it is. The first stroke is permanently there. So again, but another big difference between them is how many you can make at a time. So a lot of people might not think the enrobed is so beautiful, but it is the classic, it is the traditional. Some people absolutely love it, and you can make thousands of those at a time. You are limited by how fast you can put them on the machine. Whereas the molds, you're limited by the amount of cavities and the quantity of molds that you have in your store. And what they share in common is that you get to be very creative. They all are, again, a very thin, snappy vessel of chocolate to serve you a mouthful of flavor and a variety of textures. You both in both of them, you need to have a knowledge of how to temper chocolate, meaning how to manipulate it. Chocolate is not just something that you melt and it sets. There's a very scientific process of how to do it. Again, that could be a whole class that I could talk to. And they also all have fillings of some sort and are pretty limitless when it comes down to it. A lot of times when we get to do custom work, the first question is, well, what can we do? What do you want? Is always my response, because we can make anything happen. You want a cheesecake? We'll do it. You want guac and salsa? We'll do it. We can really kind of make anything happen. And we have a lot of fun with the custom work because it can be as involved or uninvolved as the client wants. You can try the taste testing 1,000 times. We can decorate it 1,000 times until it's exactly what you want. We can customize your packaging, everything from beginning to end. And so here we are at Atelier Disset. We have opened our brick and mortar, kind of like I said, our 6-year plan or 5-year plan became a 6-month plan. I originally didn't actually think it was a good idea to do brick and mortar. Sometimes you see people selling knickknacks and tchotchkes to kind of make ends meet. And I knew I didn't want that. I wanted to be chocolate all the way. And I was very humbled to see that our clients, they really wanted it. I was getting asked for it all the time, and I didn't want to go too far from our home here in Cutchogue either. So when we found this space that we're in now, I felt very fortunate, and it took about 6 weeks to get up and going from the day I found it to the day that we opened. We opened for Easter with a really big Easter egg hunt where we did about 6-inch tall chocolate sculptures. We hid 7 of them around the North Fork, and you had to go find them on Instagram and post about it. If you found all of them, you got entered to win one. So we did have about 20 people that found all 7 of them, and a lot of happy kids that got to go home with the mallet and kind of break the sculptures and share them with their families. So our store is in the main street of the Cutchogue village. The exact address I left for you guys here. But we are between Dottie Pilates and the North Fork Physical Therapist. We're open Thursday through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. But that's going to be tentative as the North Fork season winds up. I am sure we will be extending those hours. And we also have our e-commerce still going. It's open year round, or you can for mailing or pre-order. We do nationwide shipping. At this time of year, we recommend overnight or 2-day air at the most, as a lot of parts of the country are starting to get very, very warm. We do pack them with ice and try and do our best, but we really are hoping that this works. We would not want to cancel nationwide shipping for the summer, so we're really trying our best, and that requires overnight shipping for now. What else is in store for Disset? So coming up, we have the Mother's Day collection. So if you can see me up in the corner, I have one right in front of me. I'll show you as we finish too. I'll show you a few things when I take the PowerPoint down. But we have our Mother's Day collection available through next weekend for all mothers or dads that have been doing both jobs or whatever it may be, fur mamas, plant mamas, anyone. We also have our signature Disset collection. It's kind of the collection I get to have the most creativity and fun with it. We call it our signature collection, kind of mocking or imitating, not mocking, because it's very much an ode to how it's done the fashion industry. We will be releasing these biannually. There's a winter collection and a summer collection that will be coming out in the beginning of July. And these I have a lot of fun with. This is the one I was mentioning that has the pie, the lemon pie. There is a banana walnut bread. It is for the adventurers for sure. And I get to have a lot of fun, and I get very inspired by, a lot of the travel that I've been fortunate enough to do, a lot of memories and things like that. We also are opening up. I'm actually in the space that I'm in right now is kind of behind the brick and mortar store, which is why we were inspired to name it the Atelier, which means workshop in French, because we would like this to really feel like the studio of Cutchogue. So we will be hosting paint and sips where we'll do sculptures that are filled with truffles and things. You get to have fun with your friends or family and come and, do a little paint and sip, and you get sent home again with a little mallet, and then you can break it and enjoy it around the table at home. tastings of, like I said, tasting 5 different 70%, pairings with wines and breweries, and a lot of the beautiful farms and fruits and everything that is here in the North Fork. And we do have a lot of collaborations that are going to be popping up. You're going to start seeing us pop up with some collaborations all over the East End and even New York City. So there's a lot of surprises to look forward to. And we also have a lot of fun kits for children, like I've been mentioning, the breakers back and forth, painting chocolates at home should you not want to, or do not feel comfortable coming into a workshop yet, s'mores kits, hot chocolate, and so much to do. So we'll always be innovating new flavors and new things to do within all those existing products already. So last but not least, I wanted to mention that we're always available for private events should you want to host them here at the workshop, at your home, or anything like that. And thank you so much to all of you for joining us. Big thank you to the North Fork community, any of you that may have already come to visit us or will visit us in the future. And thank you so much to the North Fork Foodie Tour for having us. It was a total honor, and it was really fun to kind of break down and get to explain it. So I'm going to exit out of the screen sharing so that you can see me. And I'm just going to show you a few things real quick. This is the Mother's Day box that I was mentioning to you. We kind of created, my mother helps me a lot. I couldn't have done this without her. So this was a very important box to me to create and to be perfect. And the flowers on the outside are inspired by the flowers in her garden that she cuts and brings to the store every week. So to see the inside bonbons, you can see this is the collection. So as you can see, these that are, painted onto and not squares are the ones that I was mentioning. They are molded. And the square ones, as you can see, those are the enrobed cut pieces that get passed through the machine. So another good example of it is in the Disset signature collection. If I can get it open. This is our 17-piece box. So what we do is there are about 7 flavors, and we put multiple of them so you can share them with your friends and family. So as you can see, again, all the round ones would be considered molded, and all these square ones that are decorated differently are considered enrobed. They all have several layers, especially in this collection. There's a spiced cookie, spiced apple cider cookie. There's banana walnut bread. There's raspberry black sesame tahini. So it is definitely more adventurous. Whereas in the holiday collections like these are things that are inspired by mother, salted caramel, sparkling rosé, raspberry pistachio, and things like that. And the last thing I wanted to show you is the molds, just for you guys to kind of really understand. So these are examples of molds that we use. They're always polycarbonate molds. This type of plastic is a plastic that when manipulating the chocolate in the tempering process, they start to retract from this kind of mold. So it makes it very easy once you're done to just pop them all out versus you see a lot of people on the TikToks and things trying to use those silicone molds to pop out the bombs. That is a lot more work. This doesn't work, that's a lot of work. So I kind of just wanted to show you again, we're limited by the amount of cavities. If this is my thumb, you can see our thumb barely fits inside of it. And just to give you an example, the cleaning process, which I told you takes 1 full day, these cannot be cleaned in a washing machine or any kind of detergent would be too abrasive. It scratches them up. So we have 1 full day where 2 of us spend a full 9-hour shift. You use 90% alcohol and cotton pads, and you one by one polish every single cavity, not to mention then painting every single cavity. So we put a lot of love into it. And the last thing that I will say about our particular process when approaching these things is very different from a culinarian. Is we don't have a plate in mind, like I want to do a strawberry cheesecake and I want it to look like this. Let me start tasting things. We work backwards. We do the filling. I do not decorate. I try and not let myself be fooled by the beauty of them while I'm doing the R&D and tasting. So what I actually do is I taste them with no decoration on them. And once I am fully satisfied with the texture and the flavors of what's inside, then I'll think, okay, what am I feeling during this experience of eating it? What do I see? What do I see this bonbon is going to be looking at? So then, because so much thought has gone into it, I always try and recommend, if you do get our chocolates, try and eat them in 2 bites. That way, as you're taking your first bite, you can admire the layers inside of the second bite that's waiting for you and really see all the true artistry and work that goes into every single layer. They're all usually very different textures. Really see what happens in your mouth, just like wine. Let it sit on the back of your tongue, experience it, then take your second bite. And it really is just like wine tasting, an evolutionary experience. You might taste something at the very beginning and then at the end, something completely different like wine. So we try to mimic that as well. So I guess I'm going to open it up to the floor now for any Q&A that we may have.
Everybody should be unmuted. Kay, I'm sure you have a question.
Kate, you're actually muted still.
Let's see.
You'd think I'd have this down pat by now.
Okay,
We've been
there you
doing
go.
this for over a year. I thought it was a terrific presentation. I love chocolate, and I realized in the last few minutes how little I know about it. So I appreciate what you shared with us. I have 2 questions. Do you do anything in the realm of sugar-free chocolate?
So it's something that we're exploring. There's not very much sugar-free chocolate that is out there, as well as, vegan chocolates that are not just vegan by, all dark chocolate is vegan by nature, but there's a lot of new products coming on the market. So we are, as a company, exploring going down some of the more dietary restriction or preference lines for sure, but I want to make sure that they taste just as good as the non-sugar ones, but it's actually a question that we do get a lot, and something that we are looking into.
Okay, I'll keep my eye out for that. My
Sounds
second question, you mentioned neutral flavor, that you wanted to keep the shell to be neutral.
Mhm.
What do you mean by that term? Do you mean less sweet or less flavorful?
Well, so when I say neutral, I would say it in the sense of it's not going to take away from the interior, right? So in that sense, when I referred to it, I believe we were talking about the enrobed pieces, where in some cases I'm doing thousands of them at a time. So we're doing several different flavors, and we're not going to change the chocolate out of the machine every time. So I want something that, again, will give us the fluidity to do the very thin shell, but also something that's not, so in the growing process, just to back up a little bit, in the growing process, if the cocoa trees were next to coffee or, red fruit tree, red fruit bushes or things that are growing around it, that actually impacts the flavor of the cacao. So if I were to choose one that's very fluid but comes from Colombia, it probably has a very strong coffee note to it, even though there's no coffee in it. So that might not pair very well for me in a coconut almond chocolate in that sense. So when I say neutral, it's something that's not going to have too many complex notes so that it can really highlight the flavors of the interior.
Great, thank you.
Of course, thanks for your question.
Ursula, we had some people send chats to me.
Of course,
Can
please.
you order individual bonbons?
Not at the moment. We are working on getting a display here in the store so that we can build your own boxes for sure, but not at the moment.
And do you have thoughts about pairing your bonbons with coffees rather than just wines?
Yes, you will be seeing some of that soon.
Okay. I can see you've done a lot about marketing, branding, and one of our members, Margot, is a branding specialist.
Okay, hi Margot.
Why don't you input a little bit about your thoughts here, Margot?
Well, I just actually wanted to ask you, branding is a part of my question, but a broader question is, how did you, when you first started, how did you get out there? How did you market it? What media did you use? And yes, that was the question.
So I think we were very fortunate that we are in a beautiful community. So at first, a lot of it was word of mouth. And then I was very fortunate enough that a good friend of mine, Helen, works in PR, and she kind of helped us a lot to put us on the right track of where we wanted to be and who, you know, we wanted to represent ourselves as we did a lot of work into our branding. You know, I joke quarantine, we had a lot of time last year. So we put a lot of thought into the branding, into the packaging, into everything. And so as word of mouth kind of grew and started growing, we realized we needed somebody to kind of just help us focus on what was the right direction that we wanted to stay on the right tracks with. I hope that answers your question.
Well, a follow-up question. I noticed that you had an article written about you by Florence Fabricant. How did you accomplish that?
She came into the store and I just about had a heart attack when she came in. And I was like, well, this is the test. If we see it in the paper, it's good. So we got very lucky. And then about a week or two later, I got a call to see if they could send a photographer in. And that kind of was the, oh crap, I think she liked it moment.
Florence Fabric.
Oh, I know. Okay.
Okay, do you have gluten-free collections at all? Or
We don't have gluten-free specific, but we do have options if you see online to do gluten-free options. So we do ask that if you know you're going to want something gluten-free and you're going to want to pick it up, to just pre-order it so we can make sure to have boxes to that specification for you. We also do tell someone if it's a severe celiac allergy. Unfortunately, it is a facility where we process wheat and other things. So we just recommend that if it's a true, you know, a very severe allergy, we might just not be the place for you. I wouldn't want to risk it, but we try very hard to not cross-contaminate. So if it's a food preference or just something that you're doing for your own diet because it feels better, then you can definitely always reach out to us and we can make any collection gluten-free for you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you again, Ursula, for a great explanation about your very special
Thank you. I hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope we answered all your questions. As I said, I could talk about percents for 4 hours. I could talk about dark chocolate for 4 hours. So this is just trying to hit all the points that you could potentially see in some of our workshops or some of our things in the future.
Actually, are you going to be at the store or?
I am on and off. I am fortunate enough to have my mother with me. So because we're open 4 days a week, she does stay here most of the time so that I can be at the factory filling the shelves for the store. But I do pop in frequently, which is why I was happy when I was here when Florence came in, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was good. Well, it's nice to meet you. And
Thank you so much.
you said you don't do individual ones yet. How long before you can come in and start picking some?
We're trying to, it's again, like I said, we jumped into the brick and mortar, you know, fast and with a lot of love and attention. So we're just doing, we want to do it safely in a sense of with everything going with COVID, it has to be something that people can't just pick at itself. We want all the refrigeration and everything to be perfect as chocolate does melt. And as we go into the summer, we're still learning our space. Hopefully it doesn't get too hot and we're able to do that. If not, we'd have to look into a refrigerated case versus just an open case that we're used to seeing in old chocolate shops. So it's something that we're looking into, but we want to do it justice and we want to do it right, just like everything. So we're hoping this time next year it's something that we have, but I don't have a direct timeline for that yet.
Okay, thanks. Welcome.
Any other questions? Well, thank you again, and I can't wait to get back to Cutchogue. We're in Sarasota, Florida, but hopefully
lucky
we'll be
you.
back
But
soon.
I'm in Riverhead, so I will be there this
There
week.
you go.
I'm in Cutchogue. I live in Cutchogue, so I can walk to the
I was
store.
gonna say, so I'll see you in a few minutes then.
Very good.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks everybody
right.
for joining.
All right.
Good luck.
All
Thank
right,
you
take
all.
care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.